before the board, before the commission today, and for which JPS is an opportunity to review.
In your experience, how long does it take a school district to correct these types of systemic issues?
That is a very difficult question, and it depends on the school district. It depends on our initial evaluation of everything that needs to be corrected. And it's hard for me to say for Jackson because, again, we never got our baseline data that we were, that we were wanting to get. In general, for example, I mentioned in Louisiana, the 3-year minimum at times for a district this size is not unusual. It could be less depending on a lot of factors. One would be the buy-in of the district and their willingness to look at their policies and procedures. So it varies. I'd say a minimum of 3, could be less depending on the willingness and participation.
That's all I have at this time.
Good afternoon, Dr. Swindle. How are you doing?
I'm good.
I've got a few questions I want to ask you. You're a member of, I believe you said Fluency Plus, and you talked a little bit about the work that you've done for the State Department. Has Fluency Plus been hired to work with other districts other than JPS by NDE?
No.
So this was the first time that Fluency Plus was hired as a consultant for the school district with regard to a district's non-compliance.
Yes.
Now, you said that you were hired back in November of 2010. Do you know what the terms of that agreement were?
I would really have to look it up, but I can, speculate from the standpoint that it was our understanding at that point that we were going to examine the files and give them a report.
Okay. Now, when you say examine the files and give them a report, which files are you talking about?
I'm talking about the files of the original 9 petitioners and some similar students.
Right. Now, you were not part of that initial visit, were you?
No, it was not.
Okay, I believe 2 of your partners were. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, now, let's talk a little bit about Fluency Plus in general. You said that you have worked in several districts in Mississippi, also in Louisiana, correct?
Yes.
Now, who do you know recommended you Fluency Plus to the Holmes County School District for working with that district?
I'm not sure, but it possibly was Jim Galligan.
Jim Galligan is with Southern Poverty?
Yes.
Okay. And was he also the one who recommended that y'all go into Louisiana and work with those districts?
Well, in one district, yes. And another, we're actually partners with another school psychologist from somewhere else.
Okay. And was it Mr. Galligan who also recommended that y'all work with some of these other districts that you mentioned?
No.
Okay. Do you know that it was Mr. Galligan that recommended you to the State Department of Education?
No.
You don't know that?
No.
Okay. Do you know are you familiar with the settlement discussions that took place between Southern Poverty and JPS prior to NDE doing its monitoring visit, prior to you guys going in? Are you familiar with those negotiations that were going on?
No, I'm not.
Were you familiar with this case?
Object to relevance.
What's the objection? Why do you say this is not relevant?
He's asking about settlement negotiations between JPS and the complainant. And Mr. Swindle is a member of Fluency Plus. He was not party to those discussions. And it's not relevant to the fact that they're in non-compliance.
I just asked him his knowledge of it. He said he didn't have any, so I don't know how.
If he has no knowledge, then we'll just roll on the objection and we'll go forward.
Did you have any familiarity with this case prior to the monitoring visit by Fluency Plus?
No.
What about Joe Parker? Are they familiar with this case?
I can't speak to that.
Okay. Now, after the monitoring visit in which Fluency Plus went into the district and looked at the files for these 9 children as well as pulling some other random files, Fluency Plus then entered into another relationship with the State Department. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So what was that relationship?
We were appointed as technical advisors.
for this specific case.
Right, for this, right.
So you're going to be technical advisors for the Jackson Public School District for the issues that you have found them to be in non-compliance, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, when you began working with the district, I think you talked about meeting with different people, and you came up to a meeting on 4/18 and 11, I believe, and that's when you said that you were asked to leave the meeting, and the meeting was terminated. Is that correct?
On 4/11.
Yes. I believe it's 4/11. Excuse me. We'll get the exact date.
I think that was really on 4/18. That was
Right.
that was during a file review.
Yeah, it was 4/18 of 2011, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And that revolved around a dispute over the use of these forms and these protocols that you were using, correct?
Well, I wasn't told, but that's what I assumed because we came back later and negotiated those forms with the school district.
And Dr. Wendell, isn't it a fair statement that the Jackson School District folks and their consultants were in total agreement with the exact format or the form of the protocol that you and your company has developed in terms of determining whether or not children are receiving services? Is that a fair statement?
I think there was some discussion, but I think we did come to agreement of the protocols.
Yeah, you did. I mean, but there's been a lot's been made about this meeting stopped on the first day, but I believe you testified within 30 days, you and the district, Fluency Plus and the district came back together and came to a compromise on those protocols, right?
That's correct.
And those protocols are basically the form or format by which you are gathering data in order to be able to make some of the conclusions that you're
That's correct. That's correct.
And do you know whether or not those protocols were agreed to? There was a compromise?
They were agreed to. There was a compromise, and when we went back on, I guess it was on 11, 15, and 16, we were told at that point not to use those protocols, so we did not.
Okay. And do you know what is taking place at this point in time?
Do I know? Say that one.
Yeah, what kind of form or what kind of document is being used?
Well, what we do is, without the use of the protocols, we go in just like the State Department does, and we look at files and make a determination of what is in the record and what's not. And does that, for example, does the child have related services or not? Does he, are these things on the IEP? We just don't have a structured format to do that.
And would you agree with me that JPS certainly has not balked at the need to address these issues that have been brought forward as a result of that initial complaint?
I think I am a little concerned because coming to agreement with the protocols and then we actually used them at one point, and then that evaluation was not ever used again, and we weren't allowed to do it again, and we really had no contact in terms of providing technical assistance. I'm not, that concerns me.
Have you offered contact since or assistance since then has been refused?
I think we've tried to have several meetings and they were canceled. I don't have the date of it.
Did you ever cancel those meetings?
Well, we were scheduled to go, and on the morning of going, we were told by the State Department that they had been canceled.
Do you know of any meetings at which JPS has refused to attend?
I guess those, as far as I know.
Were you at the most recent one where Dr. Sargent was in it?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Where some of the top level executives for the school district were there?
Yes.
And as well as their consultants?
Yes.
And Dr. Wendell, see, you said you were a clinical psychologist. You're not
School psychologist.
Or school psychologist, excuse me, I'm sorry. But you're not an educator in the sense of an educational license or anything like that, correct?
I don't have an teaching license, if that's what you mean.
And when the district has consultants just like you, there's certainly room for disagreement between the methodology and gathering data and trying to determine whether or not a child is receiving an appropriate education, isn't it?
I have no problem with that statement.
And you have no problem with the district having a difference of opinion, but hopefully at the end of the day, you're consulting with the State Department, and the school district has its consultants, we can all have a meeting in the mind so that we're heading down the same path. Isn't that what the issue is?
Sure, and that's what we'd like to do. Over the issue of the protocols, I think it's really that, we need something to evaluate over time